recording here. Okay. And share my screen, and here we go. Okay. So session 2, just no more to say about it other than pricing is what we're to talk about today. So let's dig into it. So remember, going back, I always want to cover this because I think this is a key part of listing property. And before I get into pricing, I want to say this. I'll acknowledge right now we are in an incredibly crazy, stupid, overheated market, right? What I want to challenge you to do, however, at every step of the way is stay in your process. I would challenge you to go ahead and run a CMA. Go ahead and do whatever marketing that you normally do. I'm seeing a lot of agents, because things are selling so quickly, they used to do just listed postcards. Now they don't even do them anymore. It's like, I don't even need to do that. You need to do that from a long-term viability marketing strategy. You should always just stay with your process, regardless of how the market is, right? Regardless of whether it's overheated like it is now, or 2008 to 11 when nobody wanted listings. Now everybody wants listings. So anyway, basic premise, all listings are in 1 of 3 positions. Asking price is above market value. Again, we're in that kind of a market right now. I mean, I think we would all acknowledge that, wow, these things are maybe not worth what people are paying for them. I don't know if you've seen the little TikTok deal that's out there. The guy selling the Apple, which is just hilarious, but very accurate on where we are. So then we have market value and asking price being in harmony with each other. Obviously, 2008 to 11, we had market value and asking price being below. And as I said last week, we're somewhere in between historical data and active, okay? What I want to stress to you is you should run your numbers the same way every time, regardless of market. The presentation might change based on these external factors that we have going on. And again, where's your current inventory and why is that? And if you have something that's not selling in this market, I think we could just pretty well say we got it priced too high, right? I mean, it's just a fact. So I want to cover, and I kind of alluded to this last week, but I want to cover a few of what I think are the laws or the rules of real estate and the overall driving forces that drive a real estate market that we understand, but our clients don't. We do this every day. Y'all do this every day. You're in the market every day. A seller only does this 4 or 5 times in their life. And a marketplace can move. I mean, this marketplace right now is actually different than the marketplace was 12 months ago, which was massively different than the marketplace was 4 years ago, which was the complete reverse of 8 or 9 years ago. And so the marketplace is always fluid. So here's the first, I'm going to lay out just a few of my, what I call laws. I know that's a strong word, but I kind of think they are laws. Buyers start the process in a very pragmatic way every time. When they purchase, they become emotional. But at the very first level, it is geographic area and a baseline of physical features. I need this many bedrooms, this many bedrooms. I want it in this part of town. Sellers, however, are on the opposite side of the equation. They start out very emotionally. This is my home. What do you mean they don't like my home? Right? Then they become pragmatic over time if we have a market time. So just very simply, let me say this to you. This is why, as a general rule, when we sell a property very, very quickly, both parties are operating from emotions, and it's a great transaction. When you get a pragmatic person in a transaction, it might get ugly. When you get 2 pragmatic people, it's going to be ugly, right? So the walk and talk of the pragmatic seller, if you will, is when the seller goes, do they not realize I've dropped the price $40,000? I will do no repairs. As opposed to, this has been so awesome. Sure, let's just fix what they're asking for, okay? So just remember, clients are coming at this from 2 different aspects. Number 2, buyers draw a baseline of physical features and they won't go below it. This plays out to me in actual pricing and in running of the CMA, okay? It plays very well when we're dealing with a seller if we're comparing like to like. Thirdly, most buyers actually, and we're seeing this now, don't care what the final sales price is. They care about down payment and monthly payment. We live in, like it or not, a payment-driven economy at this point. Everything is based on payments. There's not a lot of cash. Now, in this, again, I frame everything in this right now. In this market, there's supposedly a lot of cash. I think things are being presented as cash. I think there's actually financing going on behind the scenes in a lot of these cases. But as a general rule, we are a payment-driven economy, and that frames pricing, and it frames a lot of some of the strategies that we want to lay out for sellers. Law number 4 is ratio, because buyers don't really care what the sales price is. In every market, property brings 96 to 98% of listed price. Nationally, last year, or nationally in 2019, it was actually 99%. I have a feeling in 2021 it's going to be 100 and whatever percent. We're actually going to, for the first time ever, that somebody said to me the other day, said, I've never seen it like this. I'm like, because it's never been like this. But I think nationally we may see sales prices over asking. Law number 5 is time. And it simply says time is not a seller's friend. Sellers start to lose their control levers the longer they're on the market. Now, we know this, right? But how many times have we had a seller say, hey, I'm not in a hurry, right? I don't have to sell this. I'm not in a hurry. So oddly, they tend to think that, that they get in a better position over time. And we want to make sure that we show them statistically why that is not true when we're going through pricing. And the reality is, you guys deal with brand new inventory, not old inventory. I just listened to it just a second ago. When Mark said he had 3 new listings coming up, right? And it's like, wait a minute, I might have a buyer for that. What do you got coming up? That is one of the rules of this, right? We deal with the new things. This is why price reductions are such a tough deal, because a lot of agents never go back to see if anybody's dropped the price. They just deal with the new inventory that comes up. Law number 6 is expectations. The condition of a home needs to be at the market. Buyers will not pay extra money for features they do not expect. The seller will try to tag a value on these extra things they did, but if it's not part of the buyer's baseline, it has no value at the first level. And I'll get into that more deeply here in a minute. Law number 7 is what I call the law of the bracket. People buy in price brackets. You can run your own numbers in your market. This will come screaming off the page at you. Granted, there aren't any houses under 100,000, but you'll see that if there were, they bring in $5,000 brackets. They sell in 5s. 100 to 200 is 10s. 2 to 3 is 25s. Over 3 is 50. Over $1 million is hundreds, right? If you run some stats, you'll see this. Property rarely breaks out of its price bracket when it sells. So the game becomes, we have to make sure that all of our listings are the best house in that bracket. And I would challenge you to just, if you've never done this analysis before, just run just run a one-line CMA, and you'll see this correlation almost immediately. And it's one of the key correlations we want to show a seller. Number 8 is cream. It just means cream rises, right? I mean, people have said for years, craziest thing, I had this listing and nobody wanted it, and then all of a sudden everybody wanted it. Isn't that weird? And I'm like, no, that's not weird. That just means that everything that was better than that in that bracket is gone, and now you've risen to the top. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because the marketplace moves around every day. Law number 9 is who is helping who. Simply says, when you put a listing on the market, either the marketplace is going to help us sell your listing because you have a better property than the others in the bracket, or the cold reality is we're helping somebody else sell theirs. Law number 10, and I think I would call this the mother of all laws. If you don't get anything out of these 3 sessions, I think this should go in everybody's listing presentation, what I'm about to show you. Every house that sells every single solitary time goes through 3 levels of the marketplace. All we are really playing with is how long it takes these properties to go through these 3 levels. And the first level is agent excitement. Okay. Mark, if when you had mentioned those 3 listings earlier, if you had thrown out a price that everyone else on this Zoom meeting today thought was wacky, crazy, no way, you wouldn't have had agent excitement. If we don't get agents excited, they're not bringing their buyers through, right? What we don't and we understand this, but I don't know, I'm weird. I analyze stuff a lot. Y'all have massive leverage and control in a marketplace. Agents manipulate the market on a regular basis, just in hallway conversation, right? You'll be getting ready to go out and show something, and somebody else will go, oh, I showed that last week. Well, good luck. It's horrible. Or my client should have bought that one. I can't believe they didn't. So behind the scenes, we're like manipulating things all the time, just in conversations. So the first level of every property that sells is you guys have to be excited about it, because if you're not excited, you're not going to show your buyer. I mean, every day there's listings that pop up, right? And you look at it and you go, well, there's no way. There is no way a house in that location is ever going to bring that much money. And so you don't even call your buyer. The second level is we get buyers in great numbers because the agents were excited that you guys call your buyers, right? Historically, we would tell sellers, expect 8 to 10 showings in the first 2 weeks. Just in a normal-ish market, that's what we see. Obviously, now we're seeing what, 8 to 10 showings in the first 2 hours, right? And weirdly, if we don't get 8 to 10 showings in the first 2 days, we're freaking out, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, we've messed this up. We've done something wrong here. The third level that every home that actually sells gets to is when we check for feedback. We're always one of the top 2 or 3 houses. Because what one buyer likes, they all like. What one buyer dislikes, they all dislike, because they're all looking at the same houses. Today, there is a group of buyers out there. Every day is like this in real estate. There's a group of buyers looking for baseline physical features in a geographic location. They've probably seen everything, or in the world that we're in now, they've missed out. They've been in bidding wars. And they're waiting for new houses to come on the market. So your new property gets introduced. The agents get excited about it because I have a buyer for this. They beat a path to the door. And when we check for that feedback, we're always one of the top 2 or 3. Because we're all looking at the same houses. I mean, literally, we could put people in buses. And actually, in the downturn in Las Vegas, they did this. But you could put people in buses and just say, this bus is going to this part of town today in this price range. All the buyers for that particular area just go get on the bus. And we're going to just take you all to the houses. I mean, we're doing this at some level organically now. And here's the deal. If you see a house that you like, stay there and we'll have an agent meet you there. And what would happen is everyone would be at the same houses, and other houses, people would get right back and nobody would stay, right? And then that would tell the seller that your value is not right. Something's not right in the marketplace. Law number 11 is control. Real estate is all about control. In every real estate transaction, someone has more control than the other. It's not a level playing field. A seller has 5 ways of getting in control of a transaction. They get in control by time on market, obviously meaning the lower the time on market, the more control they have. They get in control by the price, how easy it is for you guys to get into it, the condition of the property and the terms. A buyer only has 2 control levers: how long the house has been on the market and the condition of the property. Price is really not a control lever for a buyer because they're going to buy the best one they can find. If you've noticed, buyers, even before this overheated thing we're in, buyers really stopped making low offers. That goes back to the fact that it was payment driven. So if a seller has 5 control levers and a buyer has 2, who's in control of most real estate transactions? Sellers. They have more ways of getting there. I'll add on to that. If you want to have great control of your real estate career, which side of the equation ultimately should we be working on? It's the seller side. There's just more organic ways to control things when you're a seller. All right. So that's 11 of the laws. There's actually 28 of them. At some point, I'll run through the rest of them with you maybe. So we covered the whole expectation dialogue in the very beginning. And we ended that, if you'll remember, with I've asked you what you expect from me and what I have the right to expect from you. By the way, I have my own list, right? Remember that dialogue. I would love to be the person that lists your house. So let's change gears for a second. Let's talk about the value of your house in today's market. Remember that in every listing presentation, somebody's going to be very passionate about the price. 95% of the time, it's the seller, not the agent. Remember, a seller only has to defend their price with their emotions, nothing else. Doesn't have to make logical sense, but you have to be prepared to defend your price logically and from every possible angle. So here's the basic theory, six things in the basic theory. Because the buyers approach this thing pragmatically, at the first level to a buyer, every house is average. They don't find the cool stuff till the second level, right? Every house is just average because they're so pragmatic. Number three, your CMA should represent a very specific type of property, then in a very large price range, giving that property every chance to reach top dollar. Number four, if sellers understood how buyers looked at property and the process that we take buyers through, they would understand how important being accurate was. Because people don't, people will be like, well, I got to build some cushion in there. Why won't they make me an offer? All these things, because that's not the way the marketplace works anymore. Your pricing model and conversation should bring out the reality of the market. And while price is presented to me, this is my way of doing this, in a tabular format, you always have supporting detail sheets of all properties shown in case you need to go into detail on any property. Okay? So this becomes, to me, the most important part of this. Be sure you tie all of your comments back to the sellers in the context of what they said were their big three issues. Remember that? What's the most important thing, the next most important thing, the next most important thing. If we could do those three things, would you hire me? Yes, I would. Okay, those are the big three things we always got to keep rolling back to. Key numbers and correlations, and I'm going to show you the CMA in just a second. List price to sales price ratio, average days on market, numbers of bedrooms, baths of comparable homes, competing homes, average prices of solds, actives, and expires and withdrawals, a total snapshot of the market. And if there's any disagreements on price, go back over the numbers in the context of what the seller needs from the top three issues until you either have an agreement or you decide you're not going to. So here's the dialogue. Let's talk about the value of your house. Anytime we look at the value of a home, there's parameters within which people buy houses. There's certain things they're looking for. The reality is they're looking for the same things you were looking for when you bought this house. Here's the way that I came up with a value. Here's the parameters that I used. And I want you to show them exactly how you ran your CMA. Okay? What I always used to say to people was, after the line of, the reality is they're looking for the same things you were looking for when you purchased this home. I would say, you know what? The face has changed.
To go on Facebook Live.
The face has changed, but the motivations don't.
Added to today's reminders.
Right? The face has changed, but the motivations don't. Show the seller all of the search criteria you used. I would contend that you make up a criteria sheet, okay, that shows people exactly how you ran the numbers. Because then the dialogue becomes, every house that I'm about to show you is a 3-bedroom, just like yours. They all have 2 bathrooms like you do. They all have 2-car garages like you do. And in this scenario, they're all brick, right? Those drivers of the marketplace that I talked about last week. They're on a normal size lot. According to tax records, you have 2,200 square feet. So every house that I'm about to show you is between 2,000 and 2,500. The price range I ran was 200 to 300,000. Your house is 15 years old. Everything I'm about to show you is 10 to 20 years old. And they're all in this particular part of town, right? Here's how I came up with the number. I think that is a crucial part of this presentation. Would you agree that these are houses like yours? Would you agree that your house would fit within this criteria? This is the point in the presentation when a seller would say, yeah, but I've got a screened-in porch. I've got a sunroom. I've got this landscaping that we did. You know, they'll start adding in these other things, and the dialogue has to become, you're exactly right. You do have those features, and we'll talk about those in a second. But from a buyer's perspective at the first level, and from agent's perspective, these are the core things that we have to make sure we have in line on the front end. The answer should be yes. If the answer is no, that's not my house. Okay, why isn't this your house? Please coach me here, right? Well, my house is just better than that. Okay, tell me why, right? So what happens in this thing is, rather than we want to kind of change the narrative. Rather than us defending our price to the seller, we want the seller to have to defend their price back to us. So we want to keep asking questions, right? So if we don't stay in that question mode and stay slow and take lots of notes, I know I said this to you last time, you want to take lots of notes, you want to keep the conversation slow. Thomas Jefferson said, nothing gives one man more control over the other than to remain cool and unruffled in all circumstances. The fact that you take notes is huge because it slows the conversation down. A conversation that speeds up becomes a disagreement. A disagreement that speeds up becomes an argument. An argument that speeds up becomes a fight, and a fight that speeds up becomes a fist fight. And I had an agent years ago, and she said, here's my biggest problem with this thing. I can't get them off their price onto my price. And I said, well, that's just a bad narrative. Isn't it just the price today in the market, acknowledging that the marketplace is fluid? I mean, I don't know about you, but I know people that in the fourth quarter of last year, agents were selling these houses going, there's no way this house is worth that. And here we are headed into the second quarter of the next year, and that seller could probably turn a profit right now because the marketplace moves. And that's a key component to this. So how are we going to present price? I think the order that we present things is very important. So I would contend we're going to show them sold properties first, then we're going to show them under contracts, then we're going to show them expireds and withdrawals, properties that tried to sell but didn't, and pull out those key correlations. Then we're going to show them what's actively out there right now, that when we introduce their property to the marketplace, we'll be competing against those homes. Then we're going to summarize it. And then we're going to tell them our thoughts on where they need to be in this market. So while the process doesn't change, the dialogue very well might change. Here is the tabular format, okay? I don't know if Carl sent these to you guys yet or not. It's an Excel spreadsheet, it's all it is, right? So in a competitive environment, what I learned, and what is still true today, is a lot of agents are walking in with a lot of papers. And it's a lot of detail sheets, and like this one brought this, and this one brought that. And what a seller has a hard time with is they can't get context. So this format gives a seller context. Here's the key things that you got to cover with them. Number one is the original price of these houses. Because if you'll go back, you'll start to see, in most cases, there's no adjustment, but in some cases there is, right? So here's the original price when they first put it on the market. Here's the asking price when it actually sold, and here's what it sold for. All right, so I want you to show them three prices if there's three. If it's just asking price and selling price, obviously original price is the same thing, okay? Then we want to focus in on, here's what it was priced at when it actually sold. We want it, okay, so the next column over this, percentage AP, that is percentage of asking price. And you want to calculate that for every property that you show them. So we want to start showing them that there's very little negotiation that goes on when we sell a house. Then we have days on market. And if you stick with this, what you'll discover is there is almost always a correlation between how small the days on market are and how close together list price and sales price are going to be. And this is framed in, so remember that time when you sold your house and you said it was a great experience. Actually, that's the way the market works. So we want to recreate that again. Then of course, obviously we have the next column is the date that they closed, the numbers of bedrooms, bathrooms, and garages. And then we want to focus down here at the bottom, okay? And we want to simply say, the average days on market for a property like yours is 46 days. And properties like yours sell on average for 99% of listed price. This is where, let's say that earlier on, one of their big things was timing, right? And they said, I really want to have this done in 30 days. This allows us to say, well, remember when you said 30 days was your target? Let's dig a little bit deeper here. The average is 46 days, but it's skewed very heavily by number 5 on Catalina at 124 days. So we've had the house on Main, the house on Johnson, the house on Meadow, the house on Cedar. They all sold within the time frame that you said that you wanted to accomplish. So market-wise, there's no reason we wouldn't be able to do that. There's also a direct correlation between selling price and asking price and days on market. So the smaller that day on market is, the closer together those two are always going to be. Now you will have some kind of a weird outlier, and I put one in here. If you look at number 5 on Catalina, it was on the market the longest, but it sold for 100%. But look back over at what the original price was. And then we can look at a seller and go, look, they started out up here. Nobody wanted to play. When they got it down to 239.9, then it sold very, very quickly. Okay. This is why I think you got to build 24 hours in between the drop off of the packet and looking at the house, so that when you spread this all out, you're like, okay, what's my dialogue going to be? Which houses are the seller going to grab a hold of and try to focus on? Again, huge price range, 200 to 300,000. And here's what everything sold for. So we know that on the low side, 223, the most anybody's been willing to pay for a 3-bedroom in this scenario is 242. That's a piece of the puzzle. So let's go deeper. In addition to the 7 houses that sold, there's 3 more that are under contract. Now we don't know what those sold for yet because they haven't closed, but here's the asking prices of those. All of them were priced at 249.9. I'm sorry, 239. I don't have my glasses on. 239 and then 2 at 249. And then here's the number of days on market. Average is 30 days, again skewed by the house on Fremont, but notice they started at 254.9. They dropped to 249.9. Going back to what we know, they probably sold it really quickly once they dropped it just into that next little bracket, right? That's more of the story, not the whole story yet. Here's properties that tried to sell and didn't. There's 3 properties that were put on the marketplace, 259.9, 269, 274, that never sold. So these were people that thought they were on the market, but they weren't in the market. And a lot of times, guys, you can roll what I call roll the clock back. You can say, hang on a second. Look, I want you to notice something. If we go back 180 days or 120 days, all of these properties sold while these people were on the market. We don't want you in that scenario. And if they had that experience previously, you can go, it's kind of like the time you sold, Blue Street or whatever it was. You were on the market, but you weren't in the market. This is all about having control. My job as a listing agent is to put you in control of the transaction. The average days on market for the expired withdrawals 130 days. So we know we're selling houses in an average of 46 days. And then here's these people that thought they were going to get something done. And it's just a shame. I mean, and honestly, it's how I feel. I feel sorry for people like this because they're doing everything probably that the listing agent asked them to. They're leaving, they're cleaning, they're doing all, they don't have a chance. And the agent isn't telling them. And I think that's a travesty. Still not the whole story though, because here's the competition. There's currently in this scenario, 5 houses on the market. Here's all of their asking prices and their original prices and walk through them one by one. And then go over here to the days on market, right? So we have competition of 5 homes, but we really only probably have competition of 3 homes, number 2, 3, and 5, because the other ones are already outside the window of how long it takes to sell a house like yours. Now, if you really want to ramp this up and really have this, it's like, and by the way, I've gone into, in between our yesterday and today, whatever the appointments are, I've been in Smith and Johnson and Holland, and then you can sometimes drill it down and go, so let me just dial right into this. Smith is incredibly strong competition. That's really who we're competing against. So we have to position your property from a price standpoint, from a staging standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, so that we make sure that we're a better house than the Smith house. Now, guys, the reality is in this market right now, while I still believe you should do the CMA this way, Carl asked me before you guys got on, is it like throwing a dart? Right now, yeah, kind of. I wouldn't walk out of a presentation, honestly, unless somebody was just totally crazy. And so the dialogue switches in a market like this, not based so much on historical sales, although you need to show people historical sales. The dialogue switches to what's out there on the market. These are all on the market an average of 68 days, again, skewed by the 130 day. And then we just sum everything up. We've had 7 houses that have sold. They sold for an average of 236.2. We have 5 on the market right now at 249.4. 3 expired or withdrawals at 268. And maybe early on they said, you know, we really want 275 for our house. This is where you get to say, I wish I could tell you the house was going to bring it, but no one has, right? I want to make sure that we get this thing done. I am therefore recommending that we price your property at whatever number you've already decided that you were going to come in with. Okay? And you put the number out there and then be quiet and let them react to the number that you put out. Be quiet. Don't take it back. So many agents, when I've worked with people and I have them record their presentations, so many people go, you know, we need to price your house at 249. But if you don't think that's enough, I mean, maybe we could try this higher price, right? Put it out there and just let it sit. It's fine. You're in. At this point, you're not going to lose people strictly on price. Once sellers have been allowed to discover what working with someone who really understands the numbers of this would be like, closing's not tough, right? You've got to be willing to stay into these spreadsheets and really give them details. Have detailed sheets on every house that you show in this tabular format, so that if they have specific questions, you can go, well, let's just take a look at it. Or bring your laptop with you and say, you know what, let's just go out and take a look. Let's look at all the interior pictures. Let's have this really serious conversation about, when we put your home on the market, where does it need to be positioned to get maximum excitement from the agents, maximum excitement from the buyer, and maximum sales price for you? Now, again, the market that we are in, they're going to get that anyway. but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't still be going through the exercise, that we still shouldn't be getting comfortable with running the CMAs. Because I will tell you that from 2008 to 2011, if you weren't spot on your market analysis, it was bad, right? We were in a completely different market than we are. Are we going to go back there? At some point, yes, right? I'm a big process person. I believe you always trust your process regardless of the situation. So the closing line simply is this. After our conversation, I would love the opportunity to represent you. Do you feel the same way? And then it's simply, do you see any reason not to go ahead? The reality is no amount of marketing will fix a bad price. And with when market times start to become elongated, that's when a seller starts getting onto you about your marketing. Well, when are you going to hold it open again? Or I haven't seen the ads that other people are doing on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. And it's only because they don't know where else to go. They don't know where else to go because the presentation wasn't strong enough on pricing. Now, again, I totally understand that in this marketplace, it's like, I don't have to be that accurate. You're right, you don't. There's going to come a time, we've all been through it before, when we're going to go back to the more normalized market. And what's going to happen is, I think, pretty confident of this. So when I speak live, which I haven't done in about a year, I've done a little bit, I was at R4. When I get a group of agents, every time I always ask people, raise your hand if you've been doing this less than 8 years, right? And literally in every case, 3/4 of the hands will go up. And my next comment is, I'm just going to tell you something. This isn't normal. We've been on an 8-year market run here. And we have people that have been doing this 4 or 5 years who have never seen a market that didn't have this massive upward trend. I'm watching people on Facebook all the time. I just sold my list. I got this much money. No, the marketplace did that. And they're not going to be prepared for when the market shifts. And it will. Now, forecasting it out, you look at monetary policy. The Fed has said they're going to maintain a 0 interest rate policy through 2023. That's going to keep fixed rates low. So I think this is the marketplace that we have for a while. But I would still say work on this tabular format if you're not already doing something like that, because it does give a seller great context. List them from, and I didn't point it out, but list them from the lowest price to the highest price that somebody's been willing to pay. Very specific type of property, huge price range. In actuality, you could really not even put a price range in because they'll all settle out around the same number anyway. After you have an agreement, now is time to present your marketing plan. And the marketing plan is really just an explanation of how the marketplace works. Some of those laws we will drip into the marketing plan. The strategies that you're going to do that go above and beyond just putting someone in multi-list. And most importantly, and the biggest value proposition of all with a seller is how often you're going to communicate with them. That is the biggest complaint from sellers. I learned this calling expires. The biggest complaint was, I have no idea what is going on with my house. I haven't heard from my agent. The reason that agents have a hard time communicating with their sellers is they weren't strong enough in the initial presentation. And I've said this for years, if you're going to be a strong listing agent, you have to master the skill set of delivering distasteful information to people on a regular basis without them blaming you. If you deal with a buyer, it's always a happy phone call except for the property inspection call. There's another house today. You're pre-approved. You're this, you're that, you're that. With a seller, it's like, oh, yeah, they didn't like it either. They didn't like it either. And we have a whole generation of agents out there now that have never had to make those calls. And I just want everybody to be armed and ready regardless. So communication is absolutely the most important value proposition, which we are going to cover next week. Okay. So I will now open it up for any specific questions you may or may not have. Here, just a second. How many of you are using, oh yeah, Mark, go.
Your thoughts on Toolkit CMA? I like it. It's easy. It's comfortable, but no spreadsheets per se like you have.
I like it. It's easy. It's comfortable. I agree with you. I would ask you to test this out because it really does give a seller this snapshot of the marketplace. And it gets confusing for sellers when we're laying out various pieces of information. You'll also notice, and I don't know, what kind of pricing strategy specifically everybody uses. You'll notice there's no reference on here anywhere to price per square foot. I believe if number one, if you're ever competing against someone and that's their pricing strategy, call me because we can blow so many holes in that, it's incredible. And I think it's the most inaccurate way to value property. And I would never show price per square foot to a seller. It's the number that they want to focus in on, if it's even on the sheet anywhere. And I haven't worked in Toolkit in a long time. Does it show a price per square foot?
I'd have to double check. I'm not sure.
If it does, I would try to eliminate that. Okay.
I don't believe it does.
Yeah, I know. A lot of agents are still walking in with just the MLS, like an MLS one-line CMA form. And it has all this extraneous information that just doesn't matter. And so I think you have to strip all of that out. We want a really clean, nice presentation. So, any other questions? Okay. Did Carl already, I don't know if he's already sent them to you or not. Did he already send you the spreadsheets? Do you have them yet? Don't have them yet? Okay, he has them. So I'm sure he's probably going to wait until I send the recording to him, and then you'll get these spreadsheets. They're all editable Excel spreadsheets. All you have to do is click on the box and put the information in. Okay, there's plenty of room in there for you to do it. It will automatically tabulate down at the bottom, average days on market and percentage of list price to sales price. All those calculations will just happen when you do it. Okay, when you put them in. You can mess with it. You can put your logo up on it or whatever. But I think if you'll play around with this, you'll find out. I have a client in Houston, Texas, that really got on this, and she's like, "This is the biggest game changer ever." Because in Houston, Texas, literally everybody does price per square foot. And she said, "I have people hiring me because of my pricing strategy." So like nobody's ever explained it to me this way before. So that's what I'll challenge you with, is to play around with this a little bit. Any other questions?
I do a lot of properties that are not cookie cutter. I do a lot of rural properties, and none of them are the same. And one of the things that I have to take into consideration is acreage and that type of stuff. Do you have any?
Yeah. Well, no. So we had the same. And we have a lot of that where I live. I mean, when you go 3 miles outside of town, and people are either on 3 acres, 5 acres, 7 acres, 10 acres, whatever. And so that then becomes another parameter, right?
Right.
And I'll just tell you how I did it, okay, or how I logicked my way through it with a seller. 1 acre, 3 acres, value-wise, not a whole lot of difference. It's a big yard.
That's it.
You can't really do a lot with it. You're going to mow a lot. You get to 5 acres. Now you could do a little more with it. 5 to 7 was kind of the same thing. And then over 10 to 20, and then over 20, that was kind of my categories. Because once you got over 20, it seemed to me in our market anyway, that it flipped to be as much or more about the land than it was the actual house, right?
Yeah, right.
So I'll give you a classic story that actually happened to me. This gentleman called me, and he said, "I want to talk to you about listing my house." Okay, so I had a radio show for 14 years. He listened to me on the radio. Anyway, I go out there, and the guy that I compete against constantly, his sign's in the yard. I didn't know he was on the market. And I walked in and I looked at the guy's house, and he had this really, really nice house on 3 acres. And I said, "I got to ask you, he's really good. What happened? And then I learned such a valuable lesson in this. And he said, I'll tell you what happened. He told me his average house sold in 45 days. And I've got what I think is an above average house, and he hadn't sold it in 45 days. And I'm firing him and I'm hiring somebody else. You have to be really careful what you say to people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, that's cool. All right, here's the deal. I got to go do some research. Come back in. I said, I got some news for you. I said, in the 100 and whatever days you've been on the market, 5 properties have sold. When I dug deeper though, here's what I found. All of them were on more than 10 acres. So it appears what was happening to you was that they could get more land. And so they went that way. I said, now here's the good news. They're all gone. As you sit here today, no, seriously, this is what happened. I go, as you sit here today, you're the only guy in town. I said, but now here's the other backside. Average market time for any acreage and it was in Rogersville, which is a town outside of where I live. Average market time is 140 days. Are you okay with that? And he's like, yeah, now that you told me.
Wow.
Right? So it was all just this unrealistic expectation stuff. It was lack of feedback, right? Lack of having that ongoing conversation. So I listed, swear to God, this happened. The first day, this guy goes driving by and calls me and goes, I want to go take a look at that house, and he buys it. Right? It had nothing to do with what I did. I didn't drop the price. I didn't drop anything. The price was fine. Right? So that's a very long story to say suburbans are always tough, right? Acreage is always tough. Takes a little more research. But sellers really appreciate it when you can go to that depth with them and give them the snapshot of, okay, here's what happened. Here's this, here's that, right? And I just tell you, agents that you would be competing against, if you compete, and I'm very competitive. As I think I told you guys, I changed my life calling expired listings. The thing that I learned was on the front end, nobody interviews agents. Expireds always start interviewing agents. So I had to design some kind of a presentation that would work in a competitive environment, right? And that's what this came out of. Because I knew over time, I saw other people's presentations. I knew they were handing papers back and forth and the seller was confused and I don't know. And then I was like, wait a minute, let me just give you a snapshot. Let's see if this works. And it did. So that's way longer.
Since I have to go back in and talk to a seller this weekend, hopefully we can get your spreadsheet sooner rather than later, because I would like to definitely use that tool on them.
Listen, shoot me an email. Wayne at stfconsult.com.
Wayne at STF
see the field, consult.com.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. And I'll just turn around and forward you what I sent Carl.
Okay.
You guys haven't gotten it. Okay. And that way you'll have it before.
Yeah. Great.
But yeah, I mean, is it a seller you have listed right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's talk for, I got like 5 minutes. Let's talk. What's the deal?
We're not getting any showings. So I don't think I have any agent excitement on it.
Okay.
Because the price is high and the acreage is small, but so I've got to go back in and redo all my numbers with them and come up with a better pricing plan or release it, one or the other, because I'll do both.
So here's my question for you. How did you get there? Was it because they were pounding the table on this price, or because you really thought we could probably get this?
I really thought we might be able to get it.
Yeah.
Because of the way the market was going and the way things were selling in the area, I thought we could get it, but we're not getting the showing. So
Okay.
we're not going to be able to get it.
But bigger narrative here. What's the price point?
600.
Okay. Is anything selling at 600 on any kind of acreage?
Yes,
Okay. So we're on the market. We're not in the market.
correct.
Okay. So I'm not telling you how, but I'm in no way telling you how to do your dialogue. What I would always do though is I'd fall on the spirit and go, we need to talk. I am so sorry. I blew it.
Mhm.
I got too aggressive. You got a great house, but we need to adjust. And I promised you we would have these conversations, and now's the time. And I am sorry, but we got to do this, and we got to do it now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because here's what the market. One of the things, and I had this conversation with sellers all the time, right? I'm like, the marketplace is talking to us. The question is, are we going to listen?
Right. And I don't have a problem having those conversations.
Okay, cool.
I just want to have the tools to back me up.
Yeah, because there are times, right, when people always get into like the 30-day price reduction and all that crap, which I totally don't agree with. I mean, sometimes it's like an 8-day price reduction.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's like, well, nobody else is, even if I look in the next lowest price range, nobody's bought one of these.
Mhm.
So how in the world could I justify that we need to drop the price? We got to
Right.
just stay the course.
Right.
And that's this ongoing, right? And so we're going to talk a lot about next week, that specific communication strategy back with the seller. I do think you need to make some kind of a guarantee to them
Mhm.
on how often you will talk to them.
Mhm.
We always, and I'll lay it out now and we'll talk about it in depth, but we had a 48-hour feedback guarantee. Guaranteed you we'd call you within 48 hours of every showing, even if we called to tell you that the other agent would not call us back.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. We also had a guarantee that we would talk to you once a week, even if we hadn't had a showing. And the bigger thing was a biweekly report that went out to them that showed them how many houses they were now competing against and showed them any that had gone under contract. And in the presentation, the dialogue was, if you get a report that says there were no sales, don't worry about it because we haven't missed anybody.
That's true. Yeah.
But if you get a report that says 2 or 3 properties went under contract, we got to talk.
Right.
Because the cold reality of this is the only people that care if your house sells are me and you. The market doesn't care. I mean, it really doesn't, right?
No.
The agents bringing the buyer, they don't care if your house sells.
Bring them in, show mommy.
We're the ones, us. So we have to have this free flow of communication. If that communication breaks down and we're not open and honest with each other, this isn't going to be good. So my job is to make sure that I give you all of that feedback. Just please don't shoot the messenger.
Right. Right.
Right. And I think the challenge that agents get into with listings and why listings scare people so much, not any of you guys, but as a general rule of the industry, is because we don't set that really strong expectation dialogue on the front end of how we are going to communicate.
Mhm.
And then I didn't tell you I'd call you. I'll call you a lot. That ain't going to get it. Right. What's a lot? A lot to me, maybe every day as a seller. Right. This is that whole 3 deep thing. So anyway, we'll talk about all that next week. So, but send me that email and I'll immediately turn right around and send you what I sent Carl. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you,
Have a
Wayne.
great weekend.
Thank you.
too.
We'll see you next Friday.
Thank you.
You bet. Bye-bye.